I'm standing in the middle of London Heathrow Airport, watching my parents Harold and Susan walk away, with my sister Jessica. Their boarding passes clutched tight, while mine lies cancelled in the trash. 28 years old, and they just cut me off like I'm nothing. No phone, no wallet, no ticket home to Denver. I'm breaking down when this impeccably dressed stranger approaches. His steel gray eyes meet mine. He leans close and whispers 5 words that change everything. Pretend you're my wife. The fluorescent lights above cast harsh shadows across my face as I stare at this stranger who just offered me an escape from the nightmare my family created. My hands shake as reality crashes over me like ice water. 3 hours ago, I was Buck Morrison trusted employee at Morrison Tech Solutions, the company my father built from nothing. Now, I'm nobody stranded 4,000 miles from home, with barely the clothes on my back. I'm Alexander Thornfield, the man says, extending a perfectly manicured hand. His accent carries the refined tone of old money, the kind that opens doors and silences rooms. I couldn't help but witness what just transpired with your family. The memory burns fresh in my mind. We'd come to London for what I thought was a celebration. Dad's company was merging with a European tech firm, and after 6 years of working my way up from entry-level to senior analyst, I believed I was finally being groomed to take over the family business. Mom had booked us all first-class tickets, and Jessica practically bounced with excitement about shopping on Bond Street. Everything changed when I stumbled across the financial records in Dad's hotel room yesterday morning. The numbers didn't add up. Client accounts showed discrepancies totaling millions of dollars. Money had been systematically transferred to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Fake consulting fees, inflated expenses, a web of financial manipulation that painted a clear picture Harold Morrison was embezzling from his own clients to fund our family's lifestyle and this merger. When I confronted him privately that evening, his face turned the color of ash. "Buck, you don't understand the pressures of running a business," he stammered, loosening his tie like it was choking him. "Sometimes, you have to make difficult decisions to keep everyone employed. Stealing from clients isn't a difficult decision, Dad. It's a felony." That's when his desperation transformed into rage. "You ungrateful little parasite. Everything you have, everything this family has, came from my work, my sacrifice. You think you can waltz in here and destroy what I've built." Jessica appeared in the doorway, her designer dress wrinkled from travel. "What's going on? You're both shouting loud enough to wake the dead." Dad's voice dropped to a venomous whisper. "Your brother thinks he knows better than me how to run my company. He's threatening to destroy our family over some accounting irregularities." "Buck, how could you—" Mom appeared behind Jessica, her face twisted with disappointment. "After everything your father has done for you, this is how you repay him." I tried to explain, but they wouldn't listen. In their minds, I'd become the enemy, the ungrateful son trying to tear down his father's legacy. When I threatened to report the embezzlement to federal authorities, Dad made his choice. He called the airline and canceled my return ticket, claiming I was no longer part of the family business or the family itself. Now, Alexander Thornfield stands before me, like some guardian angel in an Armani suit offering salvation I'm not sure I can trust. His dark hair is perfectly styled, and his watch probably costs more than most people make in a year. But his eyes hold something calculating, like he's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. "Why would you help a complete stranger?" I ask, my voice hoarse from holding back tears. Alexander's smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Let's just say I have my reasons. Your father's business dealings have caught my attention recently. I'm the CEO of Thornfield Industries, and we've been considering some investments in the tech sector." A chill runs down my spine. "You know my father." "I know of him. Harold Morrison owes me $12 million from a failed business venture 3 years ago. He's been desperately trying to avoid bankruptcy, which explains his recent creative accounting methods." Alexander's words hit me like physical blows. "Your father has been stealing to pay me back, but he's still $8 million short." The terminal spins around me as I process this revelation. My father didn't just betray his clients and abandon me at the airport. He's been living in terror of this man standing before me, stealing from innocent people to cover debts I never knew existed. "So what do you want from me?" I whisper. Alexander checks his platinum watch with practiced indifference. "I need a companion for some business meetings over the next 3 days. My usual associates expect me to be married, and my actual relationship status is complicated. In return, I'll not only get you home to Denver, but provide you with evidence that could send your father to prison for his crimes." My stomach clenches as I realize I'm being offered a deal with the devil. But what choice do I have? My family just proved they'll sacrifice me to protect their secrets. Maybe it's time someone fought back. What exactly would I have to do? Alexander's smile turns predatory. Simple. Pose as my devoted husband for 3 days of meetings with potential European investors. Play the role convincingly, and I'll give you justice served on a silver platter. The irony isn't lost on me. The same family that abandoned me for threatening to expose Dad's crimes is about to be destroyed by those very same crimes, exposed by the stranger who just saved me from sleeping on airport benches. I look toward the departure gate, where my family disappeared, probably already celebrating their freedom from the son who knew too much. They have no idea that their biggest nightmare just became my unlikely salvation. Alexander's black Mercedes glides through London streets like a shark cutting through dark water. The leather seats smell expensive, and the driver doesn't speak, just follows orders delivered through the partition in clipped professional tones. I catch my reflection in the tinted window and barely recognize the hollow-eyed man staring back. The Langham Hotel towers above us like a monument to wealth and power. Doormen in gold-braided uniforms move with choreographed precision, treating Alexander like visiting royalty. Our suite occupies the entire top floor, complete with panoramic views of the city and furniture that probably costs more than my annual salary. "You'll find everything you need in the wardrobe," Alexander says, gesturing toward doors that open to reveal a collection of designer suits in my exact size. Tomorrow, we meet with Klaus Weber from Deutsche Innovation Group, followed by dinner with Jonathan Price, my chief financial officer, and Diana Walsh, my legal counsel. I hold up a charcoal Tom Ford suit that fits like it was tailored specifically for me. "How did you know my measurements?" "I make it my business to know things, Buck. Information is currency in my world." Alexander loosens his tie and pours himself 3 fingers of whiskey from a crystal decanter. The wedding ring is on the nightstand. Platinum band, simple design. "We've been married 2 years, met at a charity gala in Manhattan. You studied business at the University of Colorado, but always dreamed of working in international markets." The ring slides onto my finger with unsettling ease, like it belongs there. And if someone asks about our relationship details, we're deeply in love, obviously. I'm the workaholic trying to balance career and marriage. You're the supportive spouse who keeps me grounded. Alexander's laugh sounds hollow. People see what they want to see, Buck. Give them a few authentic details and they'll fill in the rest with their own assumptions. I spend the evening memorizing background stories and practicing casual touches that suggest comfortable intimacy. Alexander corrects, my posture teaches me how to stand beside him, with confidence rather than deference. His hands are surprisingly gentle when he adjusts my shoulders, but his eyes remain cold and calculating. The first business meeting takes place in a private dining room, overlooking Hyde Park. Klaus Weber arrives precisely on time, a mountain of a man with steel-rimmed glasses and a handshake that could crush concrete. His English carries the preciseness of Germanic education. "So you are the mysterious husband Alexander has hidden from us," Klaus says, studying me with the intensity of a scientist examining a specimen. He speaks of you often, but shares so few details. I feel Alexander's hand rest lightly on my lower back, a gesture that appears loving, but feels like a cage. Buck prefers to stay out of the spotlight. He finds business discussions tedious. Actually, I interrupt, surprising both men. I find international business fascinating, especially the challenges of currency fluctuation in tech sector investments. The words flow naturally from 6 years of working at Dad's company, analyzing market trends and financial projections. Klaus raises his eyebrows with genuine interest. You understand the European markets? Buck has an intuitive grasp of financial patterns, Alexander says quickly, but I can hear the edge in his voice. He didn't expect me to contribute meaningfully to the conversation. For the next hour, I find myself drawn into complex discussions about emerging technologies and market strategies. Klaus seems genuinely impressed by insights I'd developed while working for Morrison Tech Solutions. The irony is bitter. My father's company built on theft, and lies actually taught me valuable skills that now impress legitimate business leaders. During a brief moment when Klaus steps away to take a phone call, Alexander leans close to my ear. You're full of surprises, aren't you? Is that a problem? Quite the opposite. You're playing the role better than I anticipated. His smile seems more genuine this time, though something predatory still lurks beneath the surface. Klaus is considering a $50 million investment in renewable energy technologies. Your insights about market trends might have just sealed the deal. Jonathan Price and Diana Walsh join us for dinner at an exclusive restaurant in Mayfair. Jonathan is all nervous energy and rapid-fire calculations, fingers constantly moving like he's working invisible spreadsheets in the air. Diana carries herself with the quiet confidence of someone who's won more battles than she's lost. Her auburn hair pulled back severely, and her suit perfectly tailored. Buck Alexander tells us you have experience in the American tech sector. Diana says, her voice warm, but her eyes analytical. What's your perspective on the regulatory challenges facing startups? I launch into an explanation of SEC requirements and compliance issues, drawing from real cases I'd handled at Dad's firm. Diana nods approvingly, occasionally asking probing questions that test the depth of my knowledge. I pass every test, earning respect I never received from my own family. But something feels wrong. Throughout the evening, I notice Alexander taking phone calls in hushed tones, stepping away from our table with increasing frequency. When he thinks I'm not watching, his expression turns darker, more calculating. After dinner, back in our hotel suite, I pretend to sleep while Alexander paces near the windows, speaking in whispers to someone on his encrypted phone. The sun is more valuable than anticipated. He says, his voice barely audible. Yes, he has intimate knowledge of the financial operations. No, he doesn't suspect anything yet. There's a long pause. Trust me, acquiring the son will be much more profitable than simply destroying the father. My blood turns to ice water as I realize the truth. Alexander isn't just seeking revenge against my father or collecting a debt. He's planning something far more sinister, and I've walked straight into his trap. The abandoned son has become the perfect weapon, but I'm starting to understand that I might not be wielding it myself. I lie perfectly still, controlling my breathing while my mind races through possibilities. My family betrayed me and left me vulnerable, but this man who offered salvation might be even more dangerous than the criminals who abandoned me. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, London's lights twinkle like false stars, beautiful but cold. Just like the man who saved me from the airport, only to ensnare me in a web I'm only beginning to understand. Tomorrow, I need to start learning the rules of this new game before I become another casualty of Alexander Thornfield's ambitions. The morning brings gray London rain that matches my mood as I pace our hotel suite, while Alexander attends what he calls preliminary meetings. He's given me access to his laptop and files, claiming I need to understand the business discussions we'll be having today. What he doesn't know is that 6 years of financial analysis has taught me how to read between the lines of corporate documents. The Morrison Tech Solutions folder on his desktop contains enough evidence to bury my father for life. Bank statements showing systematic transfers from client accounts to Harold Morrison's personal accounts. Forged invoices for consulting services that never existed. Documentation proving that fake art purchases and inflated business expenses have been laundering stolen money for 3 years. But the real shock comes when I find the folder labeled Jessica Morrison, Financial Transactions. My sister isn't just the spoiled daughter I thought she was. For the past 18 months, she's been receiving monthly payments of $15,000, listed as consulting fees, for a marketing company that exists only on paper. The money trail shows these payments coming directly from clients' accounts that Dad has been raiding. I dig deeper into the financial records, my hands trembling as each revelation destroys another piece of the family I thought I knew. Mom's credit card statements show purchases at exclusive boutiques and spas, all paid for with money stolen from hardworking clients who trusted Morrison Tech Solutions with their financial futures. A separate folder contains recordings of phone conversations between Dad and various business associates. I play one from last week, just days before our London trip. "Harold, the SEC is asking questions about your quarterly filings," says a voice I don't recognize. "You need to clean this up before they start a formal investigation." Dad's voice sounds desperate, exhausted. "I'm working on it, Marcus. The London merger will inject enough legitimate capital to cover the discrepancies. Nobody will ever know. And if the merger falls through, it won't fall through. I've made sure of that." The next recording makes my stomach clench with nausea. "Buck's been asking too many questions," Dad says to someone whose voice is muffled. "He found some of the bank statements yesterday. I think he's planning to report me." "Your own son would destroy you. He's always been self-righteous. Thinks he knows better than everyone else. But I've got a plan. If he becomes a problem in London, I'll handle it permanently." I sit back in Alexander's leather chair, my entire worldview crumbling like a house of cards in a hurricane. My father didn't just abandon me at the airport in a moment of anger. He planned it. He systematically destroyed my life to protect his criminal enterprise, turning Mom and Jessica against me while stealing millions from innocent clients. A knock at the door interrupts my spiral into despair. Diana Walsh enters without waiting for permission, her expression grim. "We need to talk," she says, closing the door behind her with careful precision. "Alexander is planning something that goes far beyond collecting a debt or getting justice for his losses." I gesture toward the laptop screen filled with evidence of my family's crimes. "You mean beyond destroying what's left of my family?" Diana sits across from me, her professional mask slipping to reveal genuine concern. "Buck, I've worked for Alexander for 5 years. I've seen him destroy companies and people who cross him, but this is different. He's not just after your father's money or assets." "What do you mean?" "Alexander has been building a case to frame you as the mastermind behind your father's embezzlement scheme. He's planning to present you to federal authorities as a cooperative witness who helped expose the crimes. But behind the scenes, he's creating documentation that suggests you were the primary architect of the financial fraud." The room spins around me as I process this betrayal layered upon betrayal. "Why would he do that?" Diana pulls out a tablet and shows me financial projections and corporate acquisition plans. "Because if you're convicted as a co-conspirator, Alexander can acquire Morrison Tech Solutions for virtually nothing. He'll position himself as the savior who exposed the corruption, gain access to your father's client base and intellectual property, and eliminate you as a potential threat." I stare at documents that outline Alexander's master plan with chilling detail. He's been orchestrating this for months, possibly years. My father's desperation to repay his debt played right into Alexander's hands, creating the perfect opportunity to destroy the entire Morrison family while expanding his corporate empire. "There's more," Diana continues, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Your father received a call this morning. Alexander's people told him that you're cooperating with federal investigators. Harold is planning to flee the country tonight, liquidating every remaining asset and leaving you to face criminal charges as the fall guy for everything." My phone rings, displaying my father's number. Diana nods encouragingly, and I answer on speaker. "Buck?" Dad's voice sounds hollow, defeated. "Son, I need to tell you something important." "I'm listening." "I know we had words in London, and I know I handled things poorly. But you have to understand, I was protecting our family. Everything I did was to keep us together to maintain the life we built. I closed my eyes, hearing the lies beneath his words. Dad, I found the financial records. I know about the embezzlement, the fake consulting fees, everything. A long silence stretches between us before he speaks again. How much do you know? Enough to understand why you really canceled my ticket and left me stranded. This was never about protecting the family, was it? You were protecting yourself. Buck, listen to me carefully. That man who approached you at the airport, Alexander Thornfield, he's more dangerous than you can imagine. He's been setting us up for months, manipulating events to destroy our family and steal our company. For the first time in days, my father sounds like he's telling the truth. Then help me stop him. I say, making a decision that surprises even me. Come clean about everything. Cooperate with the authorities. We can still make this right. It's too late for that, son. I'm already on my way to the airport. By tomorrow, I'll be somewhere without extradition treaties. I'm leaving you money in a Swiss account, enough to start over somewhere safe. Dad, don't do this. Running makes you look guilty of everything. I am guilty, Buck. Guilty of being desperate enough to trust a man who planned to destroy us from the beginning. But I won't let you pay for my mistakes. His voice breaks with genuine emotion for the first time in years. I'm sorry. I wasn't the father you deserved. I'm sorry I chose saving myself over protecting my son. The line goes dead, leaving me alone with Diana and the wreckage of everything I thought I knew about my life. He's running, I tell Diana, though she already heard the entire conversation. Which means you have very little time before Alexander realizes his plan is falling apart. She replies, Harold fleeing the country changes everything. Alexander will need a scapegoat more than ever, and you're the only family member left within reach. I look at the evidence of my family's crimes scattered across Alexander's desk, then at the documents outlining his plans to frame me for everything. Trapped between a corrupt father who abandoned me and a manipulative businessman who saved me, only to destroy me more thoroughly than my family ever could. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I'm not just a victim being pulled along by events beyond my control. I have information, evidence, and an ally in Diana Walsh. Most importantly, I have something my father lost years ago: the moral courage to do what's right, regardless of the consequences. Alexander Thornfield thinks he's playing chess, while everyone else plays checkers. It's time to show him that sometimes the most dangerous player is the one everyone underestimates. Diana and I spend the next 3 hours building our own counter-strategy in the hotel's business center, while Alexander believes I'm resting before tonight's crucial dinner meeting. Using her legal contacts and my intimate knowledge of Morrison Tech Solutions operations, we construct a case that could bring down both my father and Alexander while protecting the innocent clients caught in the crossfire. The key is timing. Diana explains, spreading financial documents across the conference table like a general planning a battle. Federal investigators have been monitoring suspicious transactions from Morrison Tech Solutions for 6 weeks. They just haven't had enough evidence to move forward with formal charges. I study bank routing numbers and transaction dates, recognizing patterns that would be invisible to anyone without my inside knowledge of the company's operations. These transfers to offshore accounts happened every third Friday, always just under the reporting threshold that would trigger automatic federal oversight. Your father was careful, but not clever, Diana agrees. However, Alexander's plan exploits a gap in the federal investigation. He's been feeding information to the FBI through intermediaries, positioning himself as a concerned creditor who discovered irregularities while trying to collect legitimate debts. My laptop chimes with an encrypted email from an address I don't recognize. Diana glances at the screen and nods approvingly. That's Agent Sarah Mitchell, Financial Crimes Division. I've worked with her on previous cases involving corporate fraud. She's agreed to meet with us confidentially this afternoon. Agent Mitchell arrives at our hotel exactly 30 minutes later, dressed in a conservative black suit that doesn't quite hide the shoulder holster underneath her jacket. Her handshake is firm, her eyes sharp and analytical. She reminds me of a college professor who could dissect complex theories with surgical precision. Ms. Walsh has briefed me on your situation, Mr. Morrison. She says, settling into the chair across from us with practiced efficiency. Before we proceed, I need to understand your motivation for cooperating. Are you seeking immunity from prosecution? I'm seeking justice. I reply, surprising myself with the steadiness of my voice. My father committed serious crimes and I want him held accountable. But I won't be framed for crimes I didn't commit by Alexander Thornfield or anyone else. Agent Mitchell opens a digital recorder and places it on the table between us. Tell me everything you know about Morrison Tech Solutions' financial operations, starting from the beginning. For the next 2 hours, I detail every suspicious transaction, every altered record, every instance where my father's explanations didn't match the financial evidence. Agent Mitchell asks precise questions that reveal she already knows more about Dad's operations than I initially realized. The FBI has been building a case against your father for 8 months. She admits after I finish my initial statement. However, we've also been investigating Alexander Thornfield's business practices. His pattern of acquiring distressed companies through legal manipulation and questionable financial pressure has caught federal attention. Diana leans forward with interest. You suspect Thornfield of criminal activity beyond his pursuit of Harold Morrison? Alexander Thornfield has been involved in hostile acquisitions of 12 companies over the past 4 years. In each case, the target company was struggling with debt or legal problems. In each case, Thornfield provided financial assistance that eventually led to complete acquisition of the company's assets for significantly less than market value. My stomach clenches as I understand the implications. You think he deliberately creates financial crises to force companies into situations where they have to accept his help? Agent Mitchell nods grimly. Your father's debt to Thornfield Industries stems from a business loan with terms that were impossible to meet. The loan documentation shows interest rates and payment schedules that virtually guaranteed default. When your father couldn't pay, Thornfield offered extensions that only made the debt larger, while giving him leverage to influence Morrison Tech Solutions operations. So Dad's embezzlement was driven by desperation to pay impossible debts that Alexander designed to be unpayable. That's our theory, which is why your testimony is crucial, Mr. Morrison. You're the only person with inside knowledge of both your father's crimes and Alexander Thornfield's manipulation tactics. Diana pulls out her tablet and shows Agent Mitchell the recordings we discovered on Alexander's computer. These conversations prove that Thornfield has been planning to frame Buck as a co-conspirator, while positioning himself as the hero who exposed the corruption. Agent Mitchell listens to several recordings, her expression growing darker with each revelation. This changes everything. With this evidence, and your testimony, we can build cases against both men simultaneously. What about my family? I ask, thinking of Mom and Jessica, who are probably landing in Denver right now, unaware that their lives are about to implode. They were involved in the financial crimes, but they were also victims of my father's manipulation. Your mother and sister will likely face charges, but their level of cooperation and the extent of their knowledge will influence the severity of those charges. Based on what you've told me, it sounds like they were manipulated rather than willing participants in the fraud itself. Agent Mitchell outlines our next steps with military precision. Tonight's dinner meeting will proceed as planned, but I'll be wearing a wire to record Alexander's conversations with his business associates. Tomorrow morning, simultaneous arrests will occur. Dad will be taken into custody when he attempts to flee the country, and Alexander will be arrested during a planned meeting with European investors. What about my safety? I ask, suddenly aware that I'm about to betray a man who has already demonstrated his willingness to destroy lives to achieve his goals. Agent Martinez will be positioned as hotel security, and Agent Chen will be dining at a nearby table posing as a businessman. You'll never be alone with Thornfield without backup within 30 feet. Diana Walsh reaches across the table and squeezes my hand with unexpected warmth. Buck, what you're doing takes tremendous courage. Your father made terrible choices, but you're choosing to do the right thing despite personal cost. As evening approaches, I put on one of Alexander's expensive suits and check the micro-recorder taped to my chest. My reflection shows a man I barely recognize, confident posture, determined expression, expensive clothes that suggest success and sophistication. But underneath the surface, I'm still Buck Morrison, the abandoned son, who's learning that sometimes the only way to find justice is to fight for it yourself. Alexander returns to our suite precisely at 7 o'clock, looking every inch the successful businessman in his tailored dinner jacket. "Ready for tonight's performance?" he asks, with a smile that no longer seems charming. "Absolutely," I reply, matching his false warmth with calculated precision. "I've been looking forward to meeting your European investors." As we leave our hotel suite for what Alexander believes will be his triumph, I carry with me evidence that will destroy both the man who abandoned me and the man who saved me for his own sinister purposes. For the first time since this nightmare began, I'm not just a victim of other people's schemes. Tonight, I become the architect of justice. The Dorchester Hotel's private dining room glows with crystalline elegance as London's business elite gather for what they believe is a celebration of international commerce. Alexander moves through the crowd like a shark among colorful tropical fish, introducing me to investors, bankers, and corporate executives who control billions in European capital. Klaus Weber raises his champagne glass in a toast that unknowingly seals Alexander's fate. To new partnerships and profitable ventures, he declares, his German accent lending gravity to words that will soon prove prophetic in ways he never intended. The micro-recorder against my chest captures every conversation, every casual admission of questionable business practices, every detail that Agent Mitchell will use to build her case. But the real breakthrough comes when Jonathan Price pulls Alexander aside for what he assumes is a private conversation near the restaurant's wine cellar entrance. The Morrison situation is proceeding according to plan. Jonathan whispers, unaware that the abandoned son stands just 20 feet away, pretending to admire an oil painting of English countryside. Harold Morrison attempted to board a flight to Brazil 3 hours ago, but was detained at Heathrow when authorities discovered irregularities in his passport documentation. Alexander's laugh carries no warmth. Imagine that. Passport problems at the worst possible moment. Your contacts at immigration were very helpful in creating those irregularities. With Harold in custody and unable to flee the federal investigation, we'll focus entirely on the son. Buck becomes the perfect scapegoat, especially with the additional evidence we've planted in Morrison Tech Solutions' financial records. My blood turns to ice as I realize the depth of Alexander's manipulation. He didn't just plan to frame me for my father's crimes. He actively prevented Dad's escape to ensure I would be the only family member available to take the blame for everything. What about the wife and daughter? Susan Morrison will likely receive immunity in exchange for testifying against her son. Jessica Morrison's involvement was minimal enough that she'll face probation at most. But Buck Morrison will spend the next 20 years in federal prison while we acquire Morrison Tech Solutions for the cost of legal fees. Diana Walsh appears at my elbow, her face carefully neutral despite the explosive conversation we just recorded. "Gentlemen," she says, approaching Alexander and Jonathan with professional warmth, "our European investors are ready for the presentation." The formal presentation takes place in the hotel's private boardroom, where Alexander outlines his vision for expanding Thornfield Industries' reach into American technology markets. He speaks eloquently about innovation market opportunities and the responsible acquisition of undervalued assets from companies facing financial difficulties. Sometimes Alexander tells the assembled investors, the greatest business opportunities arise from other people's misfortunes. When a company struggles with internal corruption or management failures, strategic intervention can salvage valuable assets while ensuring that justice is served. Klaus Weber nods approvingly. You speak of the Morrison Tech Solutions acquisition. Precisely. Within 48 hours, federal authorities will arrest Harold Morrison and his son Buck for embezzling millions from client accounts. Morrison Tech Solutions will face bankruptcy and dissolution, allowing us to acquire their client base, intellectual property, and market position for approximately 10% of actual value. The investors murmur their approval, impressed by Alexander's apparent prescience in identifying and capitalizing on corporate corruption. They have no idea they're watching a predator describe how he systematically destroyed a family to feed his own ambitions. But surely the legal complications will create challenges, suggests Maria Santos, a Spanish banking executive whose questions reveal sharp business instincts. Acquiring assets from a company involved in federal criminal investigations carries significant regulatory risks. Alexander's smile turns predatory. Those risks are minimal when you've been cooperating with federal authorities from the beginning. My assistance in exposing the Morrison family's crimes will be viewed favorably by regulators and prosecutors. I'll be seen as the responsible businessman who helped bring criminals to justice, not as an opportunistic acquirer taking advantage of legal troubles. Diana Walsh excuses herself from the presentation, claiming she needs to review acquisition documents in our hotel suite. I follow her 5 minutes later, citing concerns about contract details that require my input as Alexander's supposed spouse. Back in our suite, Diana immediately contacts Agent Mitchell through encrypted channels, while I pace frantically, adrenaline surging through my system like electricity. They've arrested my father, I tell Agent Mitchell when she answers Diana's call. Alexander's people sabotaged his passport to prevent him from leaving the country. We know. Agent Rodriguez was monitoring Heathrow departures when Harold Morrison was detained. His attempt to flee actually supports our case against him, but it also confirms that Alexander Thornfield has been manipulating events far more extensively than we initially realized. Diana pulls up financial records on her laptop while maintaining our encrypted connection with Agent Mitchell. The additional evidence Jonathan Price mentioned has been planted in Morrison Tech Solutions database. Someone with high-level access has been altering financial records to implicate Buck as the primary architect of the embezzlement scheme. Can you trace the source of those alterations? Already working on it. The digital fingerprints show that modifications were made using administrator credentials that belonged to Buck Morrison, but the timing of those changes proves they occurred while Buck was in London, without access to the company's systems. Agent Mitchell's voice carries grim satisfaction. Digital forensics will prove that Buck Morrison couldn't have made those changes, which means someone else was using his credentials to frame him. Combined with tonight's recorded conversations, we have compelling evidence of a conspiracy to obstruct justice and commit fraud. I sink into Alexander's leather chair, overwhelmed by the realization that this man saved me from the airport, only to orchestrate my complete destruction with surgical precision. But now, I have weapons he doesn't know I possess, evidence of his crimes, federal protection, and the moral courage to fight back against both criminals who tried to use me. What happens next, I ask. Tomorrow morning, we execute simultaneous arrest warrants for Harold Morrison, Alexander Thornfield, and Jonathan Price. Diana Walsh has agreed to testify for the prosecution in exchange for immunity, given her cooperation in exposing the conspiracy. You'll be placed in protective custody until the trials conclude. And my family. Agent Mitchell's voice softens slightly. Your mother and sister will likely face charges, but their cooperation and the evidence of manipulation will work in their favor. The focus will be on the primary conspirators, your father who committed the original crimes, and Alexander Thornfield who exploited those crimes for his own criminal purposes. As I prepare for bed, in what will be my last night as Alexander Thornfield's supposed husband, I realize that tomorrow will bring justice for everyone who tried to use me as a pawn in their games. My father will face consequences for his crimes. Alexander will face consequences for his manipulation and conspiracy. and I will finally be free from the web of lies and betrayal that has defined my life for the past week. Diana Walsh knocked softly on my bedroom door before entering with 2 cups of tea and a tablet loaded with legal documents. "Buck, I need you to understand something important," she says, settling into the chair beside my bed. "What you've done this week takes extraordinary courage. Most people in your situation would have chosen the path of least resistance, either enabling their family's crimes or becoming another victim of Alexander's manipulation. I just did what felt right. That's exactly what makes you extraordinary. You chose justice over convenience, truth over family loyalty, moral courage over personal safety. Tomorrow, when federal agents arrest everyone involved in this conspiracy, remember that their choices led to their consequences. Your choice led to justice." As London settles into midnight quiet outside our hotel windows, I reflect on the journey that brought me to this moment. A week ago, I was Buck Morrison, the dutiful son working for his father's company, believing in family loyalty and business ethics. Tonight, I'm still Buck Morrison, but I've learned that real family loyalty sometimes means holding people accountable for their actions, and true business ethics requires the courage to fight corruption, even when it costs you everything familiar. Tomorrow, justice begins. Tonight, I sleep peacefully for the first time since my family abandoned me at Heathrow Airport. The sun rises over London like a golden hammer striking the anvil of justice as federal agents move into position across the city. From our hotel suite's windows, I watch unmarked vehicles position themselves with military precision, while Agent Mitchell coordinates simultaneous arrests through encrypted radio channels. At exactly 8:30 in the morning, Alexander returns to our suite, carrying coffee and pastries, completely unaware that his empire is about to crumble like ancient parchment. He's dressed impeccably in a navy Armani suit, radiating the confidence of a man who believes he controls every variable in his environment. "Good morning, darling," he says, maintaining our charade, even though we're alone. "Ready for today's final presentations. By this evening, Morrison Tech Solutions will be ours, and you'll be on your way back to Denver, as promised." I nod calmly, my chest micro-recorder capturing every word. "I've been looking forward to going home." "About that," Alexander says, settling into the chair across from me with calculated casualness. "There's been a slight change in plans. Your father's arrest yesterday created some complications that require your continued presence in London for several more days." My pulse quickens, but I keep my expression neutral. "What kind of complications?" "Federal investigators want to interview you extensively about Morrison Tech Solutions operations. As Harold's son and a company employee, your testimony will be crucial in building their case." Alexander's smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Of course, I've arranged for excellent legal representation to ensure your interests are protected." The legal representation he's arranged will undoubtedly guide me toward admitting involvement in Dad's crimes, while minimizing my own culpability, creating the cooperative witness testimony that will destroy any remaining Morrison family assets, while positioning Alexander as the savior who exposed the corruption. A sharp knock interrupts our conversation. Alexander frowns, checking his watch. "We're not expecting anyone until 10 o'clock. I open the door to find Agent Mitchell flanked by 4 federal agents in tactical gear, their badges clearly visible and arrest warrant in hand. Alexander Thornfield. Agent Mitchell announces with quiet authority, "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, obstruction of justice, and violation of federal racketeering statutes." The coffee cup slips from Alexander's fingers, shattering against the marble floor, in a spray of porcelain and dark liquid. For the first time since I've known him, he appears genuinely surprised, his carefully constructed mask of control cracking to reveal panic underneath. "There's been some mistake," he says, rising slowly with his hands visible. "I'm a cooperating witness in the Morrison investigation. I've been assisting federal authorities in exposing financial crimes." Agent Martinez steps forward with handcuffs, while Agent Mitchell reads Alexander his rights. Mr. Thornfield, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. This is absurd. Alexander's composure finally shatters completely. Buck Morrison is the criminal here. He's been stealing from his father's clients for years. I have documentation proving his involvement. Agent Mitchell's expression remains professional, but I catch the hint of satisfaction in her voice. The documentation you're referring to was created using Mr. Morrison's credentials, while he was in London, without access to company systems. Digital forensics confirms that evidence was planted to frame him for crimes he didn't commit. Alexander's eyes find mine across the room, and for the first time, I see him recognize that the abandoned son has outplayed the master manipulator. You recorded our conversations, he whispers, understanding, dawning like sunrise over a wasteland. Every word, I confirm, my voice steady and calm, including your admission that you sabotaged my father's passport to prevent his escape, planted evidence to frame me for his crimes, and conspired with Jonathan Price to obstruct federal investigations. As federal agents escort Alexander from our hotel suite in handcuffs, Diana Walsh enters with a team of FBI technicians who begin cataloging evidence from Alexander's files and computer systems. The suite that represented luxury and power an hour ago now resembles a crime scene processing center. Jonathan Price was arrested simultaneously at his home in Chelsea. Diana informs me, while agents work around us. Klaus Weber and the European investors have been detained for questioning about their knowledge of Alexander's criminal activities. Agent Mitchell approaches with a tablet, displaying arrest records from multiple jurisdictions. Your father, Harold Morrison, was formally charged this morning with embezzlement, wire fraud, and money laundering. He's agreed to cooperate fully with federal prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence. What about my mother and sister? Susan Morrison will face charges for her role in laundering stolen funds, but her cooperation and evidence of manipulation will likely result in probation and restitution rather than prison time. Jessica Morrison's involvement was minimal enough that she'll probably receive community service and financial penalties. Relief washes over me like cool water after a fever. My family will face consequences for their actions, but they won't be destroyed by them. Justice will be served, but mercy will temper the punishment for those who were more victims than criminals. Over the following hours, federal agents reveal the full scope of Alexander's criminal enterprise. Morrison Tech Solutions was just one of 15 companies he had systematically targeted, manipulated, and acquired through financial pressure and legal manipulation. His total profits from these schemes exceeded $200 million, built on the ruins of family businesses and individual lives. The European investors were largely unaware of Alexander's methods. Agent Mitchell explains, as we review evidence in the hotel's business center. Klaus Weber and his associates believed they were investing in legitimate acquisitions of distressed companies. They had no knowledge of the manipulation and fraud that created those distressed conditions. Diana Walsh pulls up financial records on her laptop, showing the intricate web of shell companies and offshore accounts Alexander used to hide his illegal profits. Recovery efforts are already underway. Most of the stolen assets can be returned to the original victims, including Morrison Tech Solutions clients. As afternoon fades into evening, I find myself in the surreal position of being the key witness in a federal prosecution that will probably make national headlines. The abandoned son who became the instrument of justice for both his criminal father and the predatory businessman who tried to destroy him. Agent Mitchell offers me protective custody during the trial proceedings, but I decline. I want to go home to Denver and help rebuild Morrison Tech Solutions the right way. Those clients deserved better than my father gave them, and they deserve better than Alexander Thornfield's version of justice. That's admirable, Buck, but you'll need to testify in multiple trials over the next year. Your presence will be required in several jurisdictions as prosecutors build cases against everyone involved in this conspiracy. I accept the responsibility, willingly understanding that real justice requires sustained effort rather than momentary satisfaction. My father's crimes hurt innocent people who trusted him with their financial security. Alexander's crimes destroyed families and businesses across multiple states. Both men need to be held accountable, and I'm prepared to see that process through to completion. As we prepare to leave London, Diana Walsh pulls me aside for a private conversation in the hotel lobby. Buck, I want you to know that what you've accomplished this week will have lasting impact beyond these specific crimes. Federal investigators are using evidence from this case to examine similar patterns of corporate manipulation across the country. Your courage to fight back might protect dozens of other families from becoming Alexander Thornfield's victims. The flight home to Denver carries me over an ocean that no longer seems like a barrier between my old life and whatever comes next. In my carry-on bag, I have federal contact information, legal documents, and evidence that will be crucial in upcoming trials. But more importantly, I carry the knowledge that I chose justice over convenience, truth over family loyalty, and moral courage over personal safety. My phone contains 17 missed calls from Jessica and 12 voicemails from Mom, both of them finally ready to have conversations about accountability and change. Those conversations won't be easy, but they'll be honest in ways our family interactions never were before. As Denver's skyline appears below our descending aircraft, I realize that being abandoned at London Heathrow was the beginning of finding myself, not the end of everything I thought mattered. Sometimes, the people who abandon us give us the greatest gift, the opportunity to discover who we really are when we're forced to stand on our own. 6 months later, I'm standing in the renovated offices of Morrison Solutions LLC, watching our team of ethical financial advisors help clients rebuild portfolios damaged by my father's crimes. The company name reflects our commitment to transparency and accountability values that were missing from the original Morrison Tech Solutions, but now form the foundation of everything we do. Diana Walsh accepted my offer to become Chief Compliance Officer, bringing her legal expertise and uncompromising ethics to ensure that we never repeat the mistakes that destroyed the previous company. Her first initiative was implementing financial transparency protocols that give clients real-time access to their account information and investment decisions. The Hendricks account is fully restored. She tells me, reviewing reports from our client restoration project. That's the last of your father's victims to receive complete restitution for stolen funds. Harold Morrison received a sentence of 15 years in federal prison after cooperating fully with prosecutors and helping recover stolen assets. His cooperation led to the discovery of additional offshore accounts that returned almost 90% of stolen money to affected clients. The man who abandoned me at the airport ultimately chose redemption over continued deception, though his path to that choice destroyed everything familiar about our family structure. Mom received 2 years probation and 600 hours of community service, which she's completing by volunteering at a financial literacy nonprofit that helps families avoid predatory lending and investment scams. Her transformation from passive enabler to active advocate for financial education has surprised everyone, including herself. Jessica enrolled in the University of Colorado's social work program, using her experience as a victim of family manipulation to help other young people navigate toxic relationships and family dynamics. She visits me every Sunday for dinners, where we're learning to be siblings instead of competitors for parental approval. Buck, Agent Mitchell is here for the final interview, my assistant announces from the reception area. Agent Sarah Mitchell enters my office carrying files that represent the conclusion of the federal prosecution phase of our case. Over the past 6 months, she's become more than the federal investigator who helped me expose Alexander Thornfield's crimes. Her visits have evolved into personal conversations about justice, redemption, and the possibility of building something meaningful from the wreckage of betrayal. Alexander Thornfield received 25 years without possibility of parole. She reports, settling into the chair across from my desk. Jonathan Price received 12 years. Klaus Weber and the European investors were cleared of criminal wrongdoing, though they're facing civil lawsuits from victims of Alexander's previous schemes. The sentences feel appropriate rather than satisfying. Alexander Thornfield destroyed lives and families for profit, while my father stole from clients to pay impossible debts. Both men will spend significant portions of their remaining lives in federal prison, but the real victory lies in preventing future victims, rather than punishing past crimes. How are the other families affected by Alexander's schemes? I ask. Sarah's expression brightens with genuine satisfaction. 12 of the 15 companies he targeted have been successfully restored to their original owners or surviving family members. The remaining 3 were beyond recovery, but the families received substantial financial settlements from asset recovery efforts. Our work together over the past 6 months has revealed Sarah to be someone who believes in justice as a healing process, rather than merely punishment for wrongdoing. Her approach to law enforcement emphasizes restoration and prevention values that align with my own evolution from victim to advocate for ethical business practices. There's something else. Sarah continues her professional demeanor, shifting to something more personal. The Department of Justice wants to offer you a consulting position with their Financial Crimes Division. Your insights into corporate manipulation and family-based fraud schemes have been valuable in several ongoing investigations. The offer is tempting, but not necessary. Morrison Solutions LLC has grown into a thriving business that serves clients across Colorado and Wyoming, built on principles of transparency and client advocacy that directly contradict everything my father's company represented. We're not just successful. We're making a positive difference in people's lives. I appreciate the offer, but I'm exactly where I need to be, I tell Sarah. This company represents everything I learned from being abandoned and betrayed. It's proof that justice can create something better, rather than simply destroying something corrupt. Sarah nods, with understanding that comes from shared experience, fighting for justice in complicated circumstances. What you've built here is remarkable, Buck. You took the worst experience of your life and transformed it into a foundation for helping others. As evening approaches, I walk through our offices, where financial advisors are concluding their final client meetings of the day. The atmosphere reflects purposeful satisfaction rather than corporate ambition, with team members who chose to work here because they believe in our mission of ethical financial services. My phone displays a text message from Jessica. Dinner at my place Sunday. I'm making Mom's lasagna recipe, but with vegetables added because I'm apparently becoming a responsible adult. Another message from Mom. The financial literacy workshop went well today. 3 families learned how to recognize predatory lending practices. Small victories feel meaningful. And finally, a message from Sarah. Dinner tomorrow. I know a place that serves excellent Colorado beef and even better conversation. As I lock the office doors and walk toward my car, I reflect on the journey that brought me to this moment. 18 months ago, I was Buck Morrison, the abandoned son standing in London Heathrow Airport, with no money, no phone, and no family support. Tonight, I'm Buck Morrison, founder of an ethical business that serves families throughout the Mountain West, surrounded by people who choose justice and integrity over convenience and profit. The man who whispered, "Pretend you're my wife," in that airport terminal, thought he was saving me, only to destroy me more thoroughly than my family ever could. Instead, he gave me the opportunity to discover reserves of courage and integrity I never knew I possessed. My family's betrayal felt like the end of everything familiar and safe. In reality, it was the beginning of everything authentic and meaningful in my life. Sometimes the people who abandon us perform the greatest act of unintentional kindness. They force us to become who we were always meant to be. Trust me, they'll regret abandoning me. Not because I sought revenge, but because they'll never know the man I became when I stopped being the victim of their choices and started being the architect of my own destiny. Now, I have a question for you. Have you ever experienced a moment when apparent betrayal or abandonment actually led you to discover strength you didn't know you had? Share your story in the comments below, because sometimes the worst moments in our lives become the foundation for our greatest victories. If this story inspired you to think about courage, family loyalty, or standing up for what's right, please like this video and subscribe for more stories about ordinary people who find extraordinary strength in difficult circumstances. Share this with someone who needs to hear that being abandoned doesn't mean being defeated. Thank you for joining me on Buck Morrison's journey from victim to victor. Remember, the people who try to break us often end up showing us exactly how unbreakable we really are. Until next time, keep fighting for justice, choosing truth over comfort, and never underestimate the power of doing the right thing, even when it costs you everything you thought you wanted.